Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio.
And welcome to another edition of Monday Mini, where I'm confused about the day and just saying random things because I'm off to a good start. Anyway, today I kind of had some interesting thoughts and I guess advice because as it's been almost 2 years, so I'm coming up on my second anniversary for house hunting. And being a homeowner, I'll be second year in May. So I'm sure we'll do something. I'll do something then too. But I found some really interesting tidbits and conversations that's been going around on TikTok and just in the news in general, which I think is very important for us to have a conversation about when it comes to owning homes. Of course, there's this back and forth that everybody and all the generations are having essentially. And essentially it's pretty much millennials, Gen Zers, and half of Gen Xers against the older Gen Xers and boomers, talking about the fact that buying a home is almost impossible, especially today as we look at the interest rates and what has been happening, what's happening and who owns the homes, and why this conversation of if you just didn't go to Starbucks, which don't go to Starbucks, but if you didn't go to Starbucks and for 10 years, you could get a house. And that is absolutely not true. This conversation of being able to be a millionaire if you just save, still not true. I think our retirement in itself, when it comes to like our retirement plans and the investments that we have to do because we don't have a choice, are showing this is not how this works. This saving bit and investing bit is not working for us because the powers that be have already made their money and are going to keep their money and don't care about anybody else. It's a very cynical take. I apologize. But that's what it looks like. And I say this as a person who was able to finally buy a home and get a decent interest rate, and is looking at what I could or can do different, or if there is any other differences that can be done in location. I'm also seeing a lot of videos, and we've already talked about this once, about that it is more single women who are owning homes than not, and how that has like grown in leaps and bounds, and we love it. And in general, it is women who are owning homes. And one of the big things in this debate, that there was a woman who came on and all she did was statistics. All she said was, these are the people who own it. It looks like the homes are being owned mainly by women, and it's amazing. We love to see it, blah, blah, blah. And the comments were surprising. And it all pretty much, it's like there's got to be a Reddit thread that, of course, I'm not into Reddit, but where they have figured out a conspiracy theory about how these women or people in general who are succeeding, that is not them or their demographic, and that it is something that they didn't do. Essentially, that they were like all these men, and they were men, accusing these women of getting the houses through divorce. Like, there were so many comments. How did she get it? Did she win it in divorce? Did she do this because they got a divorce? Because she took the house? Like, every single comment. And I was kind of shocked that that was the conclusion of how a woman could own a home now. Which I'm like, oh, are you divorced and sad? Is that why you're saying this? Are you projecting? Because you're sadly divorced now because you're an idiot? Like, I don't understand this comment. Because that was kind of like, it was, we all know, and we've all been aware that the comments and the sexist comments when it comes to women who succeed in anything, it's going to be annoyingly trollish. But the fact that they were jumping to divorce, and like, of course, to my satisfaction, there were so many women who were like, I've never been married. This is my house. As in fact, I owned it before I got married. He moved in with me and I kicked him out. Like, this was a different talks. And the fact that they had to even like provide that information to get any kind of justification. And the woman who did this, I believe she was a real estate person, was talking about the fact that women were owning, and then had to flip with a different video of like, wow, these men are sincerely insecure, like beyond insecure, and are going through some things that really show this is why she doesn't want to be with you. Whoever left you, this is the reason why. Your projection here is the reason why. And I'm sorry if she took your house, and I'm putting that in quotes, but you're going to need to calm down. And also, what did you do wrong? Can we talk about that? So I thought that was interesting as a conversation in itself, that women just can't have things without men jumping in. And then also, this is something that I want to advise people. So a few things that I'm learning in the real estate and about homeowner world that, of course, I was kind of prepared for already jumping in, because the whole reason I went to buy a house is my partner and I were together. The rent for our home, who was owned by an individual, a private person, so it's not like a company, was exceeding like my original, it was doubling within 2 years in an area that was okay, and in a house that did not have its own washing machine. I just finally got a dishwasher after living there for 4 years. Like all these amenities that does not exist, that you think, well, at least you would, with that price, you should have, no, there's none of these things. And so it got to the point that we're like, no, the interest rates were kind of low, slowly going up then, but like it may make more sense. I have saved up money. I have saved up enough money that I'll have extra money if something goes wrong, and then go from there. And Melody, who is a friend of the show, which we should have her back on real soon anyway, she was the person who was helping me go through this process, because of course, we talked about responsibly buying. So making sure you're not buying from a company, making sure you're not going into an area that you're part of the problem, of the gentrification problem, being very cautious and aware of what and who you're going in with, all those things. So I went in with, okay, sat down, I had to give her my finances and like, these are the things I can do and can't do. I went in knowing that I wanted to be owner of the house. I didn't want any messy ties or things like that. I was like, okay, this is my responsibility. If something goes wrong, it's going to fall back on me solely. And that's how I wanted to keep that. Like my parents didn't help me at all. Like we didn't have any of that. I followed my real estate Melody's advice for anything and trusted the process with her, which that's the first thing. Find a real estate agent that you can trust. There's a lot of things flipping right now. There was a big lawsuit that just happened in which once upon a time, the buyers were not responsible for your real estate agent's fee. That came out of the sellers when they sold the house. That is switching. That has changed. A lawsuit has come out and that they believe they have won. I don't know who it was they, because it wasn't the real estate agents, have won, in which now that responsibility will fall back onto the buyers, which seems kind of good for the seller, not great for the buyer, who is already the one that's paying down or buying the $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 home, to have to add another $20,000, $30,000 on the bill. So a lot of conversations about, who is this protecting, who isn't it protecting, is this right, is this wrong, is definitely going to shift things. There's a lot to have this conversation and like understand who you're using and who's going to help you. Because I also came out, when I bought this home, it was a good deal for what it was at the time that it was. The people selling it made double, essentially, like what they paid, because it jumped so quickly for them. And then understand that their real estate agent, they could have done more. Like they were really like, why didn't you do, we had questions about who they were using. But in the end, it turned out well. They got their money. We got what we needed. And Melody did an amazing job in making sure I knew what was going on, because I was freaking out the entire time. The amount of stress, the amount of panic attacks, the amount of heart palpitations of understanding I was putting this type of commitment into something was huge. So we were having that conversation and knowing that I had other friends who were buying homes and they didn't know their real estate agent as well. I'm like, ugh. That's a huge, huge important thing. And I know that seems like an obvious, but you have to understand who you're going in with, because this is a lot of money. Second is that taxes change, and they can significantly, I've heard stories of people saying it doubled their payment because of taxes alone. And by the way, state and county taxes are ugly. and they will take advantage of you. Like, you have to go through and check your records. So expect a jump. Mine went from what it was originally, and this is how I'm like, oh yeah, I could have done, I can definitely do this, to, oh, it went up to $150 a month because of taxes. And they're like, oh, we didn't do this properly, or this wasn't done properly. And this is with all the tax exemptions that I went through. The Homestead Act, all of that, I did those because I was like, I got to figure out what's going on. But that changes every year. And we've seen conversations about how that has ousted a lot of people who've owned their homes for a very long time. But the taxes has gone crazy and almost is unaffordable for them. And that is something that you have to think about in the future as well. Hopefully you can fight things, because there are such injustices in this that I was like, what is going on? But being prepared for that. Of course, being prepared for the extras, like, oh, did a rat eat my dishwasher? Yeah, he did. Did it cost me like $800 more? Yeah, jerk. Still very mad about this rat. Raoul did me dirty. But having the understanding of that cost as well. And then also, when it comes to like rental properties, we need to be on the lookout of who, and I know, God, it's one of those things, you can't be choosy sometimes. You can't be choosy at all. And people are, so many scammers. So many scammers. I've seen so many people just taking a house and be like, this is up for rent, give me this, and looking official. And it turns out it's not up for rent at all. And you just gave a deposit away, and you signed something, and you moved out thinking you were moving to a home, and it's not at all. As in fact, in Atlanta, it came out recently, and we've kind of all known this. You can go back and see Behind the Bastards I did with Robert, where we talked about rent in general and who owns all these things. But the actual thing is 3 corporations, and this was as of beginning of March, actually own 19,000 Metro Atlanta homes, and they're holding it. So there's this like Zelle had been called out at one point about their gains in this and trying to drive prices up to gain money. Also holding onto it to rent to people for an exorbitant amount of money because they're taking advantage of people. It is really, really, really gross. I want to say one of the company, BlackRock, has been around and been buying this stuff up. And it sounds like a conspiracy theory, which is why I think Robert did that episode that he did. But the fact that they are power behind so many things, and housing is just one of those things. And they are part of the responsible parties in driving up these housing prices and driving up these rates and driving up so much. So there's this conversation that needs to be had that it is not good. I know, Anney, I've been trying to convince you to buy a house, but then I was like, stop. Don't do it right now. Everything is gross. It is not a buyer's market, and the government is only helping and assisting large companies to keep driving up these prices. Supposedly, there's an investigation about it, and they did like knock down some of the companies like Zelle a peg or two, but it was after outcries of realizing who was making this market so unaffordable. And with that, I was trying to see who may have some of the better affordability. And sadly, these are the same places that you may also, if you're a woman, do not have many rights. So take that for what you will, because the number one for cost of living and number one for housing affordability is Mississippi. The number 2 cost of living is Alabama, but the number 2 affordability, housing affordability is West Virginia. So a lot of them are in the southern states. So like I've seen, Alabama is number 4 for for housing affordability. Number 44 in the best states to live in overall. Mississippi was number 48 in the best state to live in overall. So there's a lot that you're like, do I want to live there? Okay, maybe I could afford it there. But do I want to actually live there? Iowa actually stands at number 6 as affordability, number 5 for cost of living, number 8 for housing affordability, and number 7 in the best states overall. So, hey, listeners, Iowa, tell us what's going on over there, because I'm kind of shocked. I don't know anyone that lives in Iowa. No offense. I just don't. Do you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You do? Yeah. I don't know anybody who's from Iowa. I need to expand my friend group, I guess, countrywide. So shout out to Iowa. Let me know what's going on there. But yeah, there's definitely some conversations about what's affordable. Why is it safe? And you know, some of the states that we called out, not safe for women at all. Georgia ended up being number 27. So like we are for cost of living, like we are in the middle with number 26 for housing affordability. 21 in best states overall. So we're middling. We are an average crew, which
We're mid.
we're mid. We're going to stay mid.
I'm so sorry, everybody.
Idaho, which I have heard of people wanting to move to Idaho. I heard they have a really like bustling art district and art area. So someone needs to tell me about that. But they are number 3 in the best states overall. Housing affordability is at 25 and cost of living is at 17. So, there are some things to consider. I would not move at any point at this time because obviously I'm very established. Thought about Ireland. Keep thinking about it, but like, I just bought this house. I don't think I can do this. And it's not a buyer's market. Oh, it is a buyer's market, but no one's buying. So that's part of the problem. It's interesting to see with these conversations and these lists about who and what this is going to affect. Again, women are now gaining access to it more. I'm wondering, like, is there any causality into why it's getting more difficult now? I don't know. That must be another conspiracy theory. Apologies. But like in my head, I'm like, we just can't thrive. Y'all just won't let us.
Right. This is interesting because I have an episode coming up because I do have a lot of friends who are renting in apartments and are like, have had these conversations aloud to me of like this, it's expensive, but I feel safer, but I would like to save money, but it means moving to somewhere I wouldn't feel so safe. I've been looking at moving and I was just curious. And I was researching, like, I want to know who, like the landlord breakdown, like gender wise. Yes, it's mostly men, but it was more close than I thought it would be. But one interesting thing that I found was the landlords kind of openly said that they have gender stereotypes that affect when they're going to who they'll rent to. And of course, race also plays into it, which we've talked about before, but that they were being so stereotypical. I was kind of shocked you said that out loud. But one of their things was basically a perception that women won't be able to fix stuff, so they'll have to do more work if it's a woman who's renting. So
really, I assumed it would be that women will be cleaner and quieter.
They said that too, but they'll complain less. They prefer the man who they believe will be able to fix stuff, whereas the woman, like literally, one person said they don't know how to screw in light bulbs. Women
like they said that about women.
Yeah, women don't know how to screw in light bulbs, so I'll have to be coming in. Like, really?
Wow. To be fair, maybe just like, it's not my responsibility, so I don't want to.
I know, that's the other part of it. That's the other part of it, because then is it like, because we have that perception of women being high maintenance. Yeah. Is it just anytime she complains about something, you're like, oh, she's being high maintenance?
Yeah. In actuality, you're just noticing she's complaining as versus like the others complaining just as much, but you don't notice it. Also, just by the way, if you want to know the number 1 best overall state was Utah.
Really? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh.
But the fact is, like, housing affordability is at number 33 for them. Cost of living is 25. They're at 25. And then affordability was like 28. They're number 28 for that. And then they're number 20 for opportunity. So I'm trying to be like, how does those numbers mesh then? Because I'm not telling you how this is qualified. It's just like the titles have been given. And this is according to the usnews.com. So, like take it with a grain of salt and where it's from. But like, I found it interesting that all the other numbers are like mid, but they're still number 1. I'm like, is it because they got the good parks? Is it because they got the good parks? They do have
really good parks.
It's great parks.
I do love your parks, Utah.
Cheers to that. But yeah, like that's interesting. I'm excited to hear your take on that because I think we haven't really talked about landlords and renters, and it's getting to be a really heated subject right now.
It is because, like you said, there's been a lot of backlash, discussion about rents going up, interest going up. And it's frustrating because I feel like so many things in this conversation are out of your control. And so for me, I'm very much in a holding pattern where I know one day the rent will go up and I will have to go. And I don't know when that will be.
Right.
So it's just annoying when it's like, because I've pretty much been told if you like it, that's a good price, stay there until it goes up. But that's such a strange place to be in, where you're essentially waiting for someone else to give you maybe 60 days, maybe, to make this huge decision. Where do I go next?
Right. But nothing, and you can't get ahead either because you can't plan. People want to rent immediately. Like, it's such a crisis that I hate. I hated this whole thing, which is why I would like refusing to. And honestly, had he kept the prices as was, or at least in reasonable intent, instead of doing it like he did a 25% increase for like 3 years. We're like, wait, what? 25% increase instead of like 5% every year. That I was like, wait, what is this for? And it didn't make sense. Like his reasoning made no sense other than like taxes. And I was like, okay, I kind of get that, but you were already making, like he had bought this place for so like little and done so little in renovations that it was like, because we know you've already paid it off by this point. I don't know, I don't know. And not that you're not allowed to make money, sure. But to really like go over the top with lies and be like, no, it's absolutely not this, and this. And then like getting, and knowing that I rarely got things fixed on time. Like I had to beg. And he was like, because that whole idea of like I don't have to be responsible for appliances and like you like things that happen in the background, like that was lovely. I did not want to deal with that. I loved my neighbors at the time. my partner there, but like there's so many things that's just like it doesn't make sense. But because it finally got to that point, it's like I hate to do the I don't want to be responsible, but I guess I'm going to be responsible in this manner and buy a whole home.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the reason that I was looking into this, because I've had honestly, part of it is me, but I've had troubles with my landlord. And now that I've read this study, I'm like, there was a reason I felt uncomfortable, like complaining or like raising an issue. Right. And it's gotten kind of like, there are things that I need to get fixed. And I keep putting it off because I'm like, oh no.
You don't want to deal with it. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I am looking forward to our celebration, your 2-year anniversary. We'll do another check-in. But yeah, there's a lot of issues to talk about for sure.
A lot of conversations.
Yes, indeed. Well, listeners, if you have thoughts about this, if you have any questions you would like us to address, to look into, please let us know. You can email us at stephanie@momstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter @momstuffpodcast or on Instagram and TikTok @stuffmonevertold.you. We have a TeePublic store and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.